defend and save our nation from the fascism being plotted by the Muhammadu Buhari presidency and the All Progressives Congress. Nigerians are already aware that the APC and the Buhari presidency are not serious with campaigns ahead of the February 16, 2019 election. They know that the APC and its candidate, President Buhari, are seeking ways to enmesh the election in crisis, stalemate the electoral process, and pave the way for rigging and actualization of plots to perpetuate President Buhari in office. With the prevailing state of our polity, like the flagrant violation of our constitution, continuous attacks on the institution of democracy and principle of separation of powers, consistent abuse of human rights, like the locking up of the opposition members, detention of Nigerians illegally, attack on peaceful protests, clamp down on the media and vocal members of the civil society, as well as the unleashing of brutality on innocent citizens that have characterized the Buhari presidency, it is clear and manifestly clear that our nation is on a rapid descent into fascism, which we must all resist with our votes. The PDP Presidential Campaign Organization urges all compatriots to note that a vote for APC is an endorsement of fascism, and allowing President Buhari another tenure will be the pathway to full totalitarianism, where citizens will be treated as vassals in a conquered country. The PPCO hereby invites Nigerians and the members of the international community to note how agents of the Buhari presidency and the APC have been attempting to derail our electoral system and subdue all democratic institutions in the bid to achieve a self-succession for President Buhari. Today, our freedom and personal liberty as a people are under threat. Our rights, as constitutionally guaranteed as citizens, are about to be completely taken away. Our last lines of defense as a free people, our legislature and our judiciary, have also come under siege. We are all witnesses to the unrelenting assault on the institution of the judiciary and the courts by the Buhari presidency as well as the APC. This siege on the judiciary has now come to a climax with a widely condemned attempt by the Buhari presidency and the APC to forcefully remove the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen. In spite of the widespread condemnation, President Buhari and the APC have refused to show remorse. If anything, they have carried on as if Nigerians are already a conquered people. This ignoble act is with a view to replace Justice Onnoghen with a pliable CJM that will execute its plots to annex the court and use them to curtail freedom of expression and to silence opposition members as well as perceived opponents of the Buhari administration ahead of the February election. Such attempt at annexation is to subject judicial officers under the control of the Attorney General to determine and perhaps even write judgments on political and human rights cases and cover atrocities of anti-democratic forces in our nation. The world can recall how the Buhari presidency, in a widely condemned sting operation in 2016, used the Directorate of State Services to hand and round up sitting Supreme Court and High Court judges in Nigeria. Since that sting operation, our judiciary has remained under siege, with the agents of the Buhari presidency and the APC directly interfering in cases and trying to direct the decisions and rulings of the courts. Nigerians and the world can recall how agents of the Buhari presidency and the APC last year besieged an attempt to forcefully remove the elected leadership of the National Assembly, the symbol of our democracy. Nigerians will also recall how they used apparatus of state powers to seal the legislative complex, unleashed thugs to invade the Senate chamber, disrupted legislative proceedings, and forcefully carted away the maize, the emblem of the sovereignty and authority of the people. In this slide to fascism, Nigerians are daily falling victims of extreme torture, illegal detention, extrajudicial and arbitrary killings, forceful crackdown on peaceful protesters, and mass burial by unrestrained agents of the state forces, as detailed in the 2017 and 2018 Amnesty International Human Rights Report. In the same vein, there have been concerted efforts by the government to gag the media, leading to the mishandling of journalists, manhandling of journalists, and invasion of media houses over reports that were considered unfavorable to government. Furthermore, Nigerians recall how the Buhari presidency attempted to inject crisis into the electoral process with a delay in the release of funds to the INEC and the refusal by President Buhari to sign the amendments to the Electoral Act, which eliminates all the openings for rigging. This is in addition to the widely condemned foisting of Mrs. Amina Zakari, the president's relation by marriage, as head of the collation of results of the presidential poll, as well as the plot to use the police as a suppressive tool to intimidate voters and assist APC agents to unleash violence and manipulate the process, for which President Buhari was bent at retaining the overtly partisan IGP Ibrahim Idris, even when the tenure had expired, except for the fact that the voices of Nigerians has compelled them now to do the needful. This regime has turned out to be the most vicious in the history of our nation. Nigerians and the world must therefore rise in condemnation of this dangerous drift towards Hitler's Germany, Mussolini's Italy, Idi Amin's Uganda, Charles Taylor's Liberia, and Tansui's Burma. Perhaps President Buhari has forgotten that Nigeria is a democratic state, and he needs to be reminded that as a people, we have chosen democracy as a form of government with its personal freedom, liberty, and rule of law that it guarantees. Nigerians will never accept any kind of draconian rule and dictatorial tendencies. We therefore charge all Nigerians, all victims of injustice and brutality of the Buhari presidency, all victims of the mindless killings encouraged by the insensitivity of the Buhari presidency, all those impoverished by the corruption and incompetence of the Buhari administration, and all lovers of democracy in our nation to get ready to defend our nation and save her from the fascism by voting out President Buhari on February 16, 2019. The February presidential election will be a referendum for our freedom. We make a clarion call on Nigerians to vote in defense of our nation. We must vote in defense of our rights and lives as free citizens of our nation. We must vote in defense of rule of law and resistance to repressive forces and political bandits seeking to foist a fascist regime on our nation. Thank you very much, and I welcome you all.